But Dr. Cook, let's jump into the topic at hand. We're talking about one of the most important topics, I think, one of the most common info boosts that people use as soon as they come into limbic arc is almost pain. It's by far one of the most used info boosts, and people talk about it all the time. And I'm excited to hear about pain, Dr. Cook, from your perspective.
That's because you're kind of a sadist.
we like pain to go away.
There we go. Yeah. Well, listen, let's get into it. So where does it hurt? Pain beyond the 14-day info boost. Let me see if I can advance my screen here, which I think I can. There we go. What I want to talk about mostly today is this cycle of pain. You see pain there at the top, and pain is a continuum. And one of the things from a TCM point of view, a traditional Chinese medicine, is that stagnant qi is always part of the process. And stagnant qi then leads to inflammation, which leads to muscle tension, reduced circulation, reduced movement. So it
starts energetically, is what you're saying. I mean,
it does.
All of this is pain.
Right. Well, it can start anywhere. And that's the reason I've got this yin-yang symbol here in the middle, is because it's a balance between all of these things. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that out to the side. So it just reminds us that this is a kind of a continual dance of physiology and anatomy. So it starts with the pain. And let's say, as an example, you sprain your ankle. One of the things, the thing that primarily causes the pain associated with a sprained ankle is the stagnant qi that occurs. What happens is when your body is injured, it will set up an energy shield as a defense against further injury. So when you sprain your ankle, you tear things, you actually do tissue damage in that area. And to protect you, then your body will essentially lock the energy so that you're less likely to move and less likely to damage it further. But that stagnant energy becomes the primary source of the pain. Whiplash, I think, is another classic example. I know that if you get in an accident, you'll experience whiplash sometimes 3 days after the accident, because it takes that long for it to kind of settle in. But it's because your body sets up this stagnant qi, and over time it just becomes a bad thing. Stagnant qi is never a good thing. So the next thing then is the inflammation. Oh, and let me go back to that here. Let me go back on that slide. You'll notice the blood that is congealed down there around this sprained ankle. Right. Isn't actually a photograph.
The bruising.
Yeah, and obviously that results in this sprained ankle because this sprain is bad enough that it's torn a lot of the capillaries and the blood vessels that are in that area. But blood will follow qi. So when you get stagnant qi, you quite often get stagnant circulation, which further compounds the problem. And then it moves into inflammation. Now, inflammation, if you remember from some of our previous presentations, inflammation is not a bad thing because it's required in order to essentially liquefy the mesenchyme so that you can get the toxins out of the body. The problem is your body sometimes doesn't know when to stop inflaming, and so you get these out of control inflammation processes going on, and that just exacerbates this whole injury. And when that happens, you then get muscle tension. Now, muscle tension in this case is going to be part of this. Let's hold this ankle stable. And one way to do that is to lock up all the muscles. And part of this stagnant qi that occurs is your body's attempt to control muscle movement.
Right, just immobilize it.
Right. And when that happens, then your circulation slows down. Now, you can see that all of this whole process is not necessarily positive. But that's one of the reasons why pain is such an important indicator of problems. And in a clinic, Most of the time when a patient comes in, they come in because something hurts. They've got some kind of a pain, or they've got some sensation that's weird and uncomfortable. And so pain is important, but you can see why it's important, because all of these negative things that are associated with it. So now you've got reduced movement. And if any of you have ever had your foot in a cast like this guy does, when you get the cast off, you'll remember that the muscles in the cast leg are going to be a lot smaller than the muscles in the leg that didn't have the cast.
And it's amazing how quickly that happens.
It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. And that happens with pain. So as you get pain and you then lock your muscles up and you don't move like you should, then you just make things worse. And so if you have low back pain and you get up in the morning and your back hurts, you move differently. You move more, you're a little more ginger, a little more careful about how you move. And as you don't stretch and don't move, if you continue to do that, you just make the problem worse. So one of the things that a physical therapist would try to do is to get you to move, increase your range of motion, start getting some activity going there, and that improves the movement of the chi and the flow of the blood. And then we get this emotional conditioning. So movement can change emotion, and pain can change emotion. Sure. And you can build all of these emotional overlays that go into the pain cycle that will hold you in this painful place. I don't have time right now, but I could tell you some stories about patients who I've treated who endured pain for years because they had an underlying emotional connection to the pain. The pain was actually there as a subconscious punishment for things that had happened in their life that they weren't even responsible for. So the emotional piece of pain, the longer pain persists, the more significant it becomes and the more difficult it is to break the cycle.
Right.
Now,
well, for you and people around you, I mean, the emotions start to go everywhere.
Well, exactly. Now, as we look at this cycle in terms of limbic arc, and I'm going to go into some slides we've seen before, but before we do, one of the challenges we have with limbic arc is you will give it to a friend and they will try an info boost and they'll say, I didn't feel anything. Well, the problem is, there's two problems with that. One is they're probably, they're probably not energetically sensitive enough to feel the effect. With time, we become more sensitive. If you use limbic arc, and even though initially you might not feel something, but you persist, over time, you actually become more and more sensitive to the energy flow in your body, and you will become more sensitive to the effect of limbic arc. That's one problem. The other problem is you might be looking in the wrong direction. So for example, let's say that I have some pain and you bring me limbic arc and I say, oh boy, this is going to solve my pain problem. Had to have a drink of water there, George.
Well, Dr. Cook, I think that's probably one of the most typical responses for people. The first thing they do when they get limbic arc is they'll look down the line, they'll see that pain info boost, and that's probably what they'll go to first.
Well, and so let's say you turn that on, and let's say that in a week or 10 days, my pain is still there. And I go, well, this must not work because my pain's still there. Well, if you were aware of this pain cycle, you might say, well, what about my range of motion? Has it improved at all? Are my muscles a little less tense? Am I less grouchy? And you might say, well, what does that have to do with pain? It may have everything to do with your pain. Your pain may be caused by some kind of habitual muscle tension that you have just built in as your way of walking now. And if we can release the muscle tension, and that may take more than 10 days, But that's where it starts. And then eventually, if you persist with the info boost, your life will improve. Again, we're looking at quality of life here. And I failed to mention, George, that limbic arc is not a medical device. We're not in the business of diagnosing and treating any disease. What we're interested in is, through the use of information, improving the quality of life. And if you have pain, and that's why we call it the pain info boost, we know that's going to impact your life, the quality of your life, in a negative way. And if we can help with that, it's going to improve the quality of your life. That's what we're about here. So let me go to the next slide. So here we are with limbic arc, and we know that with limbic arc, we're living with our present reality. And in this case, present reality is this pain from the sprained ankle. We're interested in a future reality that may be different. Yeah, we want more flexibility, we want more activity, we want more energy. We don't want the pain. But the challenge is there are a number of future realities, and one of those future realities is a persistence of the current pain situation. So the question then is, how do we get from here to where we want to be? Well, the way we get there is we follow what are called one or more future focused vectors. A vector has two characteristics. It has distance and direction. And so these blue pointy things are a representation of those vectors. And you can see that some of those point in the direction of more activity, and they take you all the way there. Some get you part of the way there. Some of them are pointing off in some other direction altogether. So you have to make choices to get to a different future reality. And that's compounded by the fact that there's about an infinite number of future-focused vectors. So there's lots of directions we could go, and there are lots of future realities we could experience. The question then being, which one of those do we choose? With limbic arc, we have built in the cloud a database, and in that database, we have put and continue to load future-focused vectors. We call them boost ingredients or virtual items. And to help you decide which ones of those to access, we've created what we call the Spark Scan. Now, the Spark Scan starts with some real-time biometric input. The first is a voice analysis, or a voice energy analysis. And in this slide, you can see that we've got the sprained ankle, and we've got the happy bouncy girl in that future reality that we're after. I put that in to remind us that when you're loading your Spark Scan and you're using your voice, you want to talk about either the present reality that you want to change. In this case, it would be, I have a sprained ankle and it hurts like heck. Or you can talk about the future reality that you desire. I'd like to have no pain. I'd like to be able to jump and bounce on this ankle like I used to when I was a kid. It doesn't matter which of those, whether you speak negatively or positively. The important thing is that you stay on topic. You talk about specifically what it is you have or are interested in. The reason you do that is because voice is topic specific. And when I talk about a particular topic or person or situation or desire, my body energy comes through, and there's a ton of information on voice, and that all gets loaded into the Spark Scan. The next thing we do then is take a tactile response. We create a target and show you that target, and you touch it when it appears. That happens 5 times. We then take that real-time input and create what's called the spark. The spark acts as a catalyst, and it's unique. It's absolutely unique to the input you've just provided. And that spark then ignites the limbic arc algorithm, and it processes the future-focused vectors. That processing includes the assignment or the determination of a percentage number, and that percentage number is called an outcome ratio. The number goes from 100 down to 0, 100 presumably being a better outcome, and so you want to use those items that have the higher score. As a rule, that's what you do.
Right.
You then select the items that you want, and it would be, I've got 3 examples here, and you would expect that the information then contained in those InfoBoost items will have a positive impact and help your body move to that future reality that you desire. And you might look at those and say, well, wait a minute, what do these things have to do with my ankle pain? And again, we need to remember that there's more to ankle pain than just the sensation of the pain. There's all these other things that go into it, and some of these ingredients that show up may have a more direct impact on something on that cycle that A, you're not aware of, or B, you're not aware that it's a contributing factor to your pain. So then what you do is you activate the things that you've selected, and that information is then transmitted to you through what's called a field effect, and it's transmitted to the part of you that that's your subconscious you, where you process over 400 million pieces of information every second. So we're communicating with the part of you that's the smartest. And I think what happens is that information is then used by the smart part of you to more effectively deal with whatever it is that you want that future reality to be. And the cool thing about limbic arc is you can use it for anything that has to do with quality of life. If you want more money, you can talk about money. If you want, to be stronger, if you want to have a better relationship with somebody, all of these things relate to quality of life, and that's really what we're about.
Right.
So that is my last slide, and I'm going to unshare my screen here in a minute.
So, Dr. Cook, I know that a lot of times we think of pain immediately, but sometimes pain it takes a little longer. It's not a matter of a 14-day info boost. It could be something that you're working on for weeks or years, depending on what you're dealing with, right?
Well, I think quality of life is something that we deal with perpetually.
Yeah.
And the way I like to use limbic arc is I like to run one of my info boosts as what I call just a constitutional. So every 14 days, I'll go in and I'll do a spark scan, and I just talk about me. When I'm doing the voice thing, I say, my name's Vaughn Cook, and I have blue eyes, and I'm this tall, and blah, blah, blah. So now I've got this voice energy that's just talking about me generally, and that information then directs the algorithm to process information that will just be kind of a tonic for me. And that's why I call it the constitutional info boost. So I run that all the time in the background. In the meantime, if I get a bit of a cold, or if I have a goal that I'm pursuing, then I'll go in and I'll use another one of my info boosts, and I'll talk about that item specifically. And I may turn that one on for 3 days or 5 days, or, something maybe less than 14 days. But I'm always adjusting this and working with it because, as you know, George, life changes, and doesn't matter where you are in the continuum. Today's a little bit different than yesterday, and it's a little bit different than tomorrow's going to be. So,
well, and it's a good reminder too that when you do a spark scan, it lasts for a period of time. So for your constitutional info boost, you'd want to wait a day or two before you get topic specific with another spark scan, right?
Yes, because we save that spark for 24 hours.
Right.
So if I do my constitutional one today, I'm going to wait at least 24 hours before I do my topic specific one, because I want a different voice pattern to show up, and I have to be out of the system for 24 hours for that new spark to be created.
Okay. Yeah, I know that was one of the questions that people would typically ask. And speaking of questions, Dr. Cook, we've got a couple minutes. Let's go through, and it looks to me like you've already addressed some of these questions in your presentation, Dr. Cook. But the first question first of all, thank you for submitting your questions. If you'll send your questions to Ask Dr. Cook at limbicarc.com, we'll be happy to address them. Here's a few of them. After selecting an InfoBoost and going through a Spark scan, there's a page that shows different percentages, and you can see on the screen there what's meant here. What do these percentage values mean? And I think you addressed this already, Dr. Cook.
Right. Those are the outcome ratio numbers, and it's an indication of which ingredient is going to take you in the direction you want to go and take you closer to your desired outcome. Right. That's why you pick the high numbers. And I personally usually pick the ones that are in the 90% range. Right.
You'd want to focus on those percentages are important numbers. And instead of selecting everything, you just want to pick your top ones. I guess you could do it however you want, but you're recommending 90% and above is a pretty good correlation.
Yeah, and I think people should experiment with this, because if you could get one and it was exactly what you needed, that would be in my opinion better than taking 25. Right. But I tend to err on the side of caution, but and use fewer than more, I should say. I would never turn on the entire library. It doesn't make any sense to me.
And I think there's a good description of what we call overload on the website that would talk a little bit about that. But in this case, certainly less might be more. And you might, again, for somebody who's looking to have a sensitivity and to feel things, that might be better.
Yes, I think so.
Here comes the next question, and it's right on the same topic. I have a friend who signed up and has been using Limbic Arc technology for a couple of weeks. He reports not noticing any chart changes in his wellness. What advice can you give him?
I would remind him that our goal here is quality of life. And, he may be the classic example. My back hurts. I did an InfoBoost. My back still hurts. Well, has the quality of your life improved? Are you getting along better with your spouse? Right. So ask those kinds of questions. And, obviously not everybody's going to stay with us on Limbic Arc, because some people just don't feel the effect. And if you don't feel it, you probably wouldn't stay with it. But I can tell you that based on the years of experience that I've had with energy medicine, over time, I've become extremely sensitive. I'll turn on an InfoBoost, and within 10 seconds, I can feel the difference. But I'm really sensitive to that kind of stuff. Well, so I would just encourage people to stick with it.
Your presentation today was fantastic, because if somebody's not, feeling, they still have pain, now you would ask the question, is your chi starting to move? How are you with inflammation, your muscle tension, your circulation, all of these parts that build to what we call pain, the emotional components. There's so much that can happen. And so the more you understand and the more you're able to look at it, the more you might be able to understand that it is truly having an effect. And some things just they take a little bit of time and they take a little bit of work.
There's a law of healing. It's called Herring's Law. And it's an observation of the sequence of healing. You heal from the top down. That's one of the ways you heal. So you will feel like you're getting better before your lab chemistry will change. And so you might ask someone, who says, I haven't felt anything. What do you mean? Well, my back still hurts. Well, do you feel like you're making, like this is the right approach? And they may say, well, yeah, I kind of feel like it's making some difference, but I'm not feeling any difference. Well, the fact that they're feeling that it's making a difference, that's an indication that their mind is changing, and their mind's going to change before their back does. It's just in keeping with that Herring's Law. Now, sometimes people will say, oh, am I just hypnotizing myself and trying, I want to believe, so that's what I'm doing here. I'm talking myself into it. No, that's not what's happening. What's happening is you're actually having the healing process is actually showing up because you're feeling like something's happening, even though you can't put your finger on it.
Well, and what you say is interesting because we often will say, I feel like I'm getting sick. The energy goes long before anything else. And the more sensitive we are to the energy, the more we're going to be able to recognize limbic arc and the impact.
Yeah.
Energy. Wow. Again, Dr. Cook, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I hope that
George, let me just say one thing. One of the things that's most gratifying to me about limbic arc is that I've had enough experience with this and this kind of technology that it works. I know it works. And when I encounter people who say, I don't think it works, well, I've had enough experience that doesn't bother me. But what I'm saying is, it's just fun to have a product that works. It's fun to have a product that is going to have a positive impact on the quality of life of the people who use it. To me, that's really gratifying.
Talk about making the world a better place. I mean, to ease suffering, to help people with their quality of life. What a